Presenting Samantha Grigg. In the recent past, she was immersed in her daily life, excelling in her forte, which was none other than singing. Once holding a promising future with a significant audition on the horizon, she now finds herself in a precarious situation, being implicated in a murder case. A fellow musician's life was tragically cut short, their body discovered in the middle of the street. What could have led her down such a chilling path from potential stardom to a suspect in a deadly crime?
I would like to extend my deepest remorse to the family of the victim. He was a fellow musician. It really breaks my heart, and I wish I could take it back every day.
This is the troubling case of Samantha Grigg, the talented teenager who found herself singing in a courtroom, accused of participating in the brutal killing of a classmate. On the evening of February 15, 2014, at precisely 10:23 p.m., police in Bath Township, Michigan, were dispatched following a 911 call from a concerned motorist. The caller had reported a man, unconscious and barely clothed, lying on the highway near the East Lansing exit on I-69. Upon arrival, the officers discovered the man in a state of grave respiratory distress. A Good Samaritan, a nurse who happened to pass by, initiated CPR until paramedics could rush the man to a nearby hospital. Unfortunately, despite these efforts, the man was pronounced dead. At first, the cause of death was unclear, except for the presence of abrasions on his body consistent with a fall onto the pavement. The question on everyone's mind: who was this man? And how did he come to be in such a state on the side of the freeway? An investigation was promptly initiated to answer these questions. Soon, the man was identified as 19-year-old Dustin Louis Frolka from Owosso, Michigan. Born to Sherry Frolka and Louis Hinker in June 1994, Dustin was a sophomore at Michigan State University, majoring in business management. 2012 graduate of Owosso High School, he was a loving father to a 10-month-old daughter and aspired to provide a good life for her. Dustin was known for his musical talent, performing as a rapper under the alias D-Fro, and harbored dreams of making it big in the music industry. His ambition extended beyond performance, as he was interested in the business side of the industry as well. Despite being signed to a record label, his life started unraveling in the months leading to his death. He began to consume and distribute narcotics, leading to an arrest by MSU police for drug possession in January 2014. This led to his eviction from his campus dorm, forcing him to seek lodgings off campus with friends. A few hours prior to his death, he had tweeted about using DMT, a potent hallucinogenic drug. A subsequent search of his cell-line apartment yielded illicit narcotics. His phone records led the police to 3 teenagers, Tyrell, Brendan Hein, and Samantha Grigg. All 3 had ties to Cell-Line High School. Samantha was on the verge of graduation, whereas Brendan had stopped attending after his sophomore year, and Tyrell was an alumnus of the school. But how are these 3 teenagers connected to Dustin? And what role did they play in his death? To unravel this, a closer look at Samantha Grigg is necessary. Samantha was a bright student and a promising musician. She was the lead vocalist for a local rock band, Undecided, and had performed at the 2012 Ann Arbor Summer Festival. It seemed she had a promising future. However, police suspect that Samantha's connection to Dustin originated from their shared passion for music. While the nature of their relationship remains unclear, phone records indicate they started communicating 1 to 2 weeks before Dustin's untimely death. Investigators theorize that Samantha, along with the 2 other suspects, attacked Dustin with the intent to rob him of his drugs and money, ultimately leaving him to die.
The evidence shows a 19-year-old MSU student had been beaten with brass knuckles and dumped along the freeway north of the campus in Bath Township. That was at 10:30 Saturday night, February the 15th. Police sources say the connection to Celine was made through the victim's cell phone.
As detailed in arrest reports, 3 teenagers were apprehended just after midnight on February 22nd at disparate apartment complexes. Tyrell was discovered inside his own residence, while Braden and Samantha were located within a vehicle suspected to be the instrument of the crime. The report indicated that Brandon was found in possession of a compact, folded knife, and his person emitted a noticeable aroma of marijuana. Subsequent to his arrest, a bag believed to contain marijuana was retrieved from his pocket. Samantha, arrested concurrently with Brandon, was placed in a holding cell pending interrogation. During the search of her vehicle, investigators recorded the presence of narcotics and related paraphernalia. Shortly thereafter, Samantha guided investigators to nearby fields and woodlands within Lodi Township to search for potential evidence. The primary detective documented Ms. Grigg's indication of a specific site on Weather Road, approximately half a mile west of Dell Road, where she believed the evidence had been incinerated. Regrettably, the search did not yield the desired results. Nonetheless, the police acquired sufficient evidence to formally charge all 3 suspects with felony murder, armed robbery, and conspiracy to commit armed robbery, each charge carrying a potential life sentence.
Teenagers from Saline could spend the rest of their lives in prison if found guilty of an MSU student's death. 18-year-old Tyrell 18-year-old Samantha Grigg, and 16-year-old Brendan Hein were arraigned on murder charges in the death of Dustin Frolka this afternoon.
In order to circumvent the complexities of a trial, Samantha opted for a plea agreement, conceding to lesser offences of manslaughter and unarmed theft.
If she had been convicted of the original offense, the murder, there would have been a life without the possibility.
As a condition of her plea deal, she was required to provide accurate evidence against her accomplices, Tyrell and Brandon. He, in turn, was compelled under the terms of the agreement to deliver an honest testimony against them.
You would be obligated as part of the plea agreement to offer truthful testimony again.
On the evening of February 15th, Samantha bravely laid bare the harrowing events that transpired involving Dustin. She recounted receiving a phone call from Brendan, who requested transportation for him and Tyrell to East Lansing. According to her, their intent was to engage in a violent confrontation with Dustin, intending to assault and rob him.
On the 15th, I was contacted by Brendan Hein and Tyrell to be given a ride to East Lansing in order to rob and or beat Mr. Dustin.
Seemingly, Samantha did not question the proposed plan. She dutifully dropped the boys off at Dustin's apartment in East Lansing, subsequently parking down the street to await their return. In due course, she received a text message from Brendan instructing her to collect them. Upon their unsuccessful search for cash in Dustin's apartment, Brendan inquired if it would be permissible for Dustin to join them in the car. Samantha confirmed that all 3 boys, Brendan, Tyrell, and Dustin, boarded the Ford Explorer Sport Track. Subsequently, she transported them to various ATM locations in an attempt to withdraw money. However, as they were en route back to Dustin's residence, a violent altercation broke out in the backseat with Brendan initiating an assault on Dustin. Brendan had brass knuckles on his hands, intensifying the assault on Dustin, who was unable to endure any further. In his desperation, Dustin decided to risk it all by opening the car door and leaping out of the moving Explorer, which was traveling at a speed between 45 to 60 miles per hour. Samantha, who was at the wheel, brought the vehicle to a halt, facilitating Brendan's and Tyrell's exit. They proceeded to Dustin, subjected him to additional assaults, and then proceeded to rob him of his possessions, which included approximately $800 in cash and his clothing.
Of course, I'm taking him home. Brendan began to him in the backseat of the car, and Dustin opened the door and out of the car. Tyrell and Brendan went outside of the car, took his clothing and his money, and came back.
After the tragic incident, the three adolescents hastily departed, leaving Dustin's life to perish on the deserted pavement. Samantha's legal representative presented to the court that the scheme to pilfer Dustin was conceived on February 14th during a social gathering Samantha was absent from. It was communicated that she was proposing $100 of fuel expenses to transport the two boys to Saline for the illicit act. The defender contended that his client, under the influence of societal pressure, reluctantly agreed to the plan. The advocate then proceeded to depict Samantha as a gifted musician with a clean record, notwithstanding her current charges for possession of marijuana and prescription medication discovered upon her apprehension. During the final hearing of her sentencing, Samantha expressed her apologies to Dustin's family for her participation in the fatal act, insisting she had no intention to inflict harm.
I'd like to extend my deepest remorse to the family of the victim. He was a fellow musician. It really breaks my heart. And I wish I could take it back every day.
Dustin's family, however, remained unconvinced. They held the firm belief that her culpability was on par with the two individuals who tragically ended Dustin's life.
You took a son, you took a brother, you took my nephew. Most, but not least, you took a father from his daughter.
Dustin's half-sister expressed deep concern, stating that multiple fractures on Dustin's skull were the result of a severe beating. She voiced her beliefs that Samantha showed a noticeable lack of ethics and empathy, as Dustin was driven to the desperate act of leaping from the car to escape the brutal assault with the brass knuckles. She further asserted that Samantha facilitated the continuation of the assault by stopping the car, allowing Brandon and Tyrell to exit and persist in their violent act. She accused Samantha of playing a significant role in Dustin's demise, stripping him of his clothing, wealth, and dignity, though not his faith. Dustin's stepmother implored the judge to impose the harshest sentence legally permissible on Samantha, recounting the numerous irreplaceable moments she accused Samantha of robbing from Dustin.
I'm gonna miss his daughter Melodies. First steps, her first words, her birthdays, her graduations, her joys, her heartaches. She'll never get to know her daddy.
Now we live knowing that on the night of February 15th, 2014, while we were inside our warm houses, Dustin was left to die on the side of the road, and there was nothing we could do to help.
The speaker highlighted that Samantha had multiple opportunities to prevent the murder, yet remained complicit. As these points were made, Samantha was seen responding with nods while wiping her tears, her head bowed low. The family expressed their belief that Samantha exhibited no signs of remorse, given her seemingly harsh recounting of the events leading to Dustin's untimely demise. Further, they noted that Samantha had publicly announced getting a tattoo of the acronym CREAM, Cash Rules Everything Around Me, in the days following the murder, a detail they found disturbing. Samantha's legal counsel shared her post-prison ambitions to pursue higher education, study music, and mentor young aspiring musicians. This revelation pained Dustin's family deeply, as Samantha had effectively robbed Dustin of the chance to realize any such dreams. Prior to sentencing, the judge informed Samantha he had received several letters regarding her case. Some pleaded for leniency, hopeful she would reform her life, while others demanded a life sentence. One individual even suggested Samantha deserved eternal damnation. In the end, Samantha received a sentence of 6 to 15 years in prison.
Well, she was the lead singer in a local band with a very bright future, but now a teenager from Saline will spend at least 6 years in prison. A judge sentenced Samantha Grigg today in the murder of the University of Michigan student.
Following the proceedings, Dustin's stepmother expressed her acceptance of the verdict, despite her wish for Samantha to serve a longer prison term.
I don't think there's peace ever. They've ruined their lives, but they've ruined a lot of our lives too.
Tyrell, Samantha's accomplice, was no stranger to local law enforcement. His apartment had been visited by officers no less than 8 times within a span of 14 months. There had been instances where he could have been apprehended and incarcerated prior to February 15th. On December 3rd, 2013, a judge sentenced him to 93 days in jail for breaking and entering a vehicle to pilfer goods valued under $200. However, the sentence was suspended. A little over a month later, on January 13th, he stood before the same judge, this time for a previously levied assault and battery charge. Tyrell's consistent probation violations led the judge to sentence him to 5 days in prison, but the sentence was deferred until the following review hearing on February 24th. The judge later confessed he granted Tyrell these opportunities in the hope he might reform. Each time Tyrell stood before him, the judge attempted to reason with him. Tyrell would vow to amend his ways and improve his life. Alas, the judge later realized that Tyrell had been insincere. Despite this, the judge had never envisaged Tyrell capable of an abhorrent act like murder. On February 12th, just 3 days before Dustin's murder, a woman reported an assault and battery to the police. She lived in the apartment beneath Tyrell's and had noticed garbage cascading outside her apartment, some of which was being swept onto her porch. Upon investigating the source of the trash, she spotted Tyrell and 2 other men on the balcony above her apartment. She claimed Tyrell hurled an empty beer bottle at her, narrowly missing her head. At this point, an arrest warrant was already in effect for Tyrell due to a probation violation related to his past offences. The officers assigned to his case noted in their report that they had visited Tyrell's apartment on February 12th and attempted to engage him, but he refused to open the door. They chose to wait in the parking lot for Tyrell to emerge so they could execute the bench warrant, but Tyrell never appeared. They concluded the charges were not severe enough to warrant forced entry, and thus they departed. Tyrell next came to their attention after Dustin's murder. Initially, Tyrell entered a plea of not guilty to the murder charge. However, he later altered his plea to guilty of second-degree murder under a plea agreement. He confessed to all the charges, including conspiring with Brendan to rob and assault Dustin. He was seated in the front passenger seat when Brendan began assaulting Dustin with brass knuckles. After Dustin leaped from the moving vehicle, Tyrell recounted that Brendan exited the SUV and stripped some of his clothes, searching for money. They also absconded with his shoes and left the scene without seeking medical assistance. Dustin's family members characterized Tyrell and Brendan's actions as malevolent. Tyrell's sentence was set at 25 to 38 years in prison.
18-year-old Tyrell Bretternitz is headed to prison for his role in the murder of MSU sophomore Dustin Frolka in February. Bretternitz pled guilty today to second-degree murder as part of a plea deal that could have him testifying against Brendan.
At the culmination of the investigation, Brendan remained the sole suspect in focus. Despite being the youngest among the trio, the prosecution concluded that he orchestrated the crime. Samantha and Tyrell concurred to testify against him. Prior to his trial commencement, Brendan accepted a plea deal, confessing to the charge of first-degree murder. He narrated the entire sequence of events to the judge, sharing how he, Tyrell, and an undisclosed man devised a plan to rob Dustin. This plan took shape in an apartment on February 14th, with an objective to take Dustin to various places to extract money. The trio subsequently approached an ATM in Taco Bell, where an unidentified man allegedly handed over money to Dustin. Brendan confessed to initiating a physical assault on Dustin in the car's backseat. With remorse, Brendan extended an apology to Dustin's family, acknowledging that he had not fully considered the potential repercussions of his actions. Brendan's counsel posited that his engagement in substance abuse and immersion in the drug culture provided some context for the incident. He also disclosed that attempts by Brendan's mother and stepfather to seek mental health counseling for him had been futile. Brendan's plea agreement led to his sentencing, a prison term ranging from 32.5 to 60 years. We would appreciate hearing your thoughts on this case. Do you believe Samantha deserved a harsher sentence, for her involvement in Dustin's demise. Please share your views in the comments section. Also, remember to like this video and subscribe for more updates. Thank you.